Hello, it's Jimmy here at O'Reilly's. I have a Mercedes C-Class Air diesel. Okay, we're inside the vehicle. Let's start it up. I'll show you what we're looking at. Can't really see, the sun's a bit bright, but we've got an engine light on down there. Okay, so I'm using the SmartSafe Launch DO1 scan tool. Gonna do an automatic search. Let's see what we're looking at. So I did have some information from the customer before he's come down, which he said it was DPF related, but he's not exactly sure what. So we're going to find out. ECM. We'll click over here. Sorry, I was trying to get it in a position where you can actually see the screen. Okay, I've got a P245328 input for the pressure sensor 1 in the particle filter has a malfunction. Signal is outside of the permissible range. Right. What that's going to mean that we have can be a few different scenarios. We either have a dodgy sensor. We probably got a broken or cracked hose that goes to the differential pressure sensor, or 3, the hoses or pipes that come to the differential pressure sensor are blocked or partly blocked. Let's have a look at the data stream. $50 millibars of pressure, 60 millibars of pressure on idle. 98% full on the DPF. Okay, so if we keep an eye on this one, and now it's just dropped to 40, which is a bit weird. Okay, if we accelerate the vehicle up, well, we can see that that's hardly moving. Go. Now, it's not really moving at the same pace that the accelerator is, which again points me to, so you can see there, if we let go, now we've got a difference in the readings. Yeah, so it looks like it may have a blockage in the pipes, because it seems like it's picking up readings but very delayed, and doesn't seem to be very accurate at all, because 1 minute it's saying there's 30 millibars, then it got 60, 70 millibars on idle. So something around the DPF pressure sensor area is going to need looking at. Okay, we'll open that up. The pressure sensor is going to be down there, so we're going to have to take off the engine cover. It's already got the screw missing there, so pull that out. Turn this little clip there to pull that out, and we should be able to just pop that out of there as well. Remove the plug, and then we'll remove this clip here with the 7mm on it. Now over here on the ECU we have 4 E10 sockets, so we'll get these open. So now we've got those out, we've got the cable in here, so if we just basically grab a nice tight hold of that, and give it a pull, we should just be able to pull them out just like that. And then we can lift the ECU and just lay it over the back there. Come around to the front, pull it upwards, and then pull it out. Okay, now here on the bracket we have a couple more of these bolts again, just taken one out there. We've got two more there, and we've got another little one here that holds this sensor wire. But looks like we might be able to just unplug the sensor wire out of the way and remove these other two remaining bolts down here, just so we can drop the bracket down. Okay, now we've taken out those bolts there. You can see now that we can move the bracket forward and we can actually reach the sensor. So again, we have a couple of clips on the hoses there and some more of these bolts to undo. So I've got these like plier clips there that I use for these sort of jobs. You just basically squeeze them on. Probably won't be able to do it with one hand now, but you squeeze them on. These are quite tight and it should just pop them off. Okay, now I've taken out the extra bolt from there. I'm just using these little trim tool, and what that does is it goes over the tube there, and I can just push the tube out while holding that with my other hand. Okay, so I've got a few tools here with me that I'm going to be using, which is a MIDI vac and a digital manometer. Now I've got that connected to the DPF, and we have around about 10 millibars of pressure on idle. So it's completely different to what the sensor is saying there. And now if I use one of these, it's a laser pedal depressor. So I'll connect that up to the accelerator just to hold the revs up, so I can then go and have a look at the sensor right there. So now I've got that on the accelerator. Got the revs up to around about 2500 RPM. And we'll increase that a little bit. Oh, it's dropping. Let's go up to 3000 RPM. Okay, we'll switch the engine off. So according to this manometer, we have a good DPF. It's not damaged. So sometimes with these sort of faults, you can have a damaged DPF, of course, as well. Your DPF may be cracked and it's not holding pressure. So it looks at the minute like we have a dodgy sensor. Okay, so that's where this MIDI vac is going to come in. Now we've got that connected down here to the pressure sensor, and we are going to put some pressure into it. And the pressure that I'm putting on here should now match the live data on here. If we can see the screen. So we've got 500, sort of 500, let me just put that back up a little bit. Around 500 millibars, which is exactly what we're getting on here. So now I'm scratching my head. Okay, so the sensor is reading exactly what I'm putting into it. The manometer is reading that the DPF is healthy, but when the pressure sensor is connected to those pipes, it's not giving the reading that we've got at all. So something going on. Okay, so I've used another manometer, and that's giving the sort of same reading that one is, so I know my manometer is working. Now if we reconnect the sensor, we are getting zero differential pressure. Okay, so I do believe that sensor is not working properly. I've got a replacement here from Febi. There's the part number for it. Febi built-in part. We're going to get that on, and there might be possibly still something wrong with the tubes. We'll go a little bit further into it once we've got this different sensor put on, and then we're just going to see what this sensor is actually reading. If this sensor's reading wrong, well, we could even have a dodgy ECU. Now these ECUs sit on top of the engine. I mean, you can't even touch that ECU because it's so hot. It sits right above the exhaust manifold there, and they are prone to damage. So we've got a new sensor on. We've still got zero reading. Okay, so I'm just making up a little bit of a mixture of this cleaning fluid into the gun here, and we're going to mix it up with some water. So what I'm hoping to do here, I'm just going to put a little bit of this down through the tubes, just make sure that the tubes are clear. You know, the tubes that come to the pressure sensor. So we'll spray some of that through it, and hopefully if there's a blockage we should get a different sort of reading. Okay, so I've got that connected onto the second hose there, which is the slightly bigger hose that goes before the DPF. So we've got fluid going in. So I'm going to run some fluid down both of those tubes just to make sure they're both clear. Okay, now we've got that fluid in, I'm going to start the vehicle up. So I can feel we are getting air coming from there, pressure. Now the big difference I can notice now is I can actually feel pressure coming from here, which I couldn't feel that before. So there's definitely a difference there. Let's just get that sensor back in there for a minute. And have a look at the live data. We've got 110 millibars. So that's definitely been breaking down some soot there. So you can see there the difference has changed again there. It was a bit confusing at the start. This was how it's saying like 40 to 70 millibars are idle, then it went to completely zero. Now we've put some cleaner in. I think we've either opened up the tubes and broken loose some soot, of course, which is now actually holding some pressure in the DPF. So we'll hold some revs on it, get the DPF cleared out. Up to about 3000 RPM. And we'll see where that sits after a few minutes. What we're going to need to do as well to make sure the sensor is reading correctly is do some adaptations on it in a minute. That's engine speed, I've clicked on the wrong one. Particle sensor, should be there now. Why is it going to engine speed? I'm not sure. Let's just watch it from there. So I don't really want to see that going below 50, to be honest. So it might indicate the DPF's damaged if it goes too low. I do know these Mercedes, they do usually hold a very low pressure, but it can chuck that code if the DPF's damaged. It can do that. Right, let's let that idle. I've got 0 to 10 millibars. It's jumping around a bit. Let's do some adaptations on the sensor. Okay, let's see where we need to go. I think it's special functions, teach-in process. Teaching of the air filter. We'll do the drift compensation, and that resets the differential pressure, oxygen sensor, airflow sensor, fuel rail pressure sensor. They're all linked together, so you reset one, it resets all of them. F3 is a little bit different to my tab 3. Just the design of how this works is a little bit different. So we've got the button over here now. But the main reason I always use the launch units on a Mercedes, I don't know if you look at some of my older videos, I used to get really annoyed using an autel on these cars. This process, which is taking like a minute or two, would take probably 15 minutes on an autel. I'm not sure why, but the loading process just takes forever. So that's all finished. We'll press OK. I'm going to do a teach-in of the particle filter. If I don't do the teach-in, we'd have to run a forced regeneration to get the percentage, another 98% of the DPF and the soot values. To get those down, you'd either have to do a regeneration or we just reset the parameters here on it. It's clearly incorrect. The pressure is not high, so we shouldn't have 98% fill level on the DPF. That's successful. So now we'll come back and we might have to clear the codes. Okay, yeah, we've got that disconnected. So we'll connect up all the parts back up now. Okay, so we've got all of these connected back up. Now we'll clear the DTCs there for that. Switch the ignition back on. Okay, that's all done. Okay, we have the live data back up. Just going to change the reading on this one to millibars for the pressure sensor. And now we can see that the fill level of the DPF is 0, soot content is 0. So we're starting fresh. Right, let's get this car started up. So we've got 0 pressure on the DPF. Let's accelerate it up. So there's definitely something going on. I think it's got to be, I'm not sure if it's an ECU issue, but we're not matching, live data doesn't match what my manometers are giving me. So I'm just we'll accelerate the car up a bit. Get that DPF cleaner through the DPF. Okay, where we are on 3000 RPM. We have 30 millibars on the DPF at those revs. We'll let it idle down. It goes to 0 millibars. I mean, according to that, the DPF is probably damaged. But when I put my manometer on there, the readings are correct. We've got sort of 8 to 10 millibars at idle, and we have sort of 55 at 3000 RPM, which would indicate sort of normal range. Just checking the fault codes there, that we haven't had any return. So yeah, like it's a bit of a strange one, this one. If I put my MIDI vac on, the MIDI vac putting 500 millibars of pressure all the way up, you know, from 100 up to 500, it's reading correctly on live data, but the sensor just doesn't read correctly, and the manometer does. So yeah, it's a strange one. We were idling at 70 millibars when I came here. We're now idling at 0. So it was idling too high before. Now it's idling too low. I think maybe it needs a software update. Other than that, I think we're just going to let the car have a drive around for a week, and if all is well, I'll upload the video and we'll call it a success if it doesn't chuck a light back on, but it probably will. We're going to wait and see. Yeah, so I think we're just going to finish it up here. So if a code does come back, it's going to be saying that the DPF pressure is too low, or that the DPF is DPF substrate is missing. Usually get a code something around those lines. So just thought I'd run a full scan just to make sure that we haven't got any sort of electrical faults anywhere else, but it seems like we have. We've got internal control unit. Let's see what that chucks up on the search. It's chucking up all sorts of Mercedes trucks. Come back from there, we have software error in that one, in the, don't even know what unit that is, driver side emergency. Okay, just to confirm the live data, I'm just trying a different diagnostic machine, which we are reading 1 millibar at 0.001 bar, which is 1 millibar. We'll hold the revs back up around sort of 3000 RPM, and we're getting the same sort of reading, 25 to 28 millibars. So we know the live data on the machines are working correctly. So where are we? I mean, some people would say that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. For me, the pressures are slightly too low now. 30 millibars at 3000 RPM would suggest that there is some damage to the DPF. According to that, I mean, we were getting a little bit of higher reading than that on the manometers. The manometers, yeah. I would have to disconnect everything again to make sure we're getting. I mean, we were getting 50 millibars on the manometers before we put the cleaner in, so it probably has come down a little bit as well. We got to remember that. I mean, it's slightly too low. Whether or not the car is sensitive enough to chalk that up as a fault, we're gonna have to wait and see. Okay, that's it. We're all finished. See you in the next video.